Welcome to the third video of Class Connect 7 Makeup. This is for questions 10 through the end, but I wanted to add one more thing to question 9 in case you needed some more for answering that question. To raise your IQ by up to 20 points, there's a couple more things you can do. You can go to school for more years, either start earlier or go for longer. This has been shown in a number of studies that it has an effect on intelligence. Summer enrichment has a big effect. Also practice and support from higher socioeconomic status. If you have higher socioeconomic status, if you have more wealth, it turns out that you will have more intelligence. You get to pursue more things, you have more options open to you, and you're able to do a lot of the activities that hopefully schools provide. Um, Practice is huge though, but basically you are able to increase your IQ if you can do information processing tasks, if you can exercise your mind a lot like a muscle, do a workout on a regular basis. So what causes a fixed mindset? Number 10. A number of things. One of the surprising things that came out of the research was that contingent regard from parents is a big correlation with a fixed mindset. What is contingent regard? It's when a parent withdraws love when a child does something that they don't want them to do, and gives love when the child does do something that the parent wants. Sometimes this is called conditional love. If you love someone unconditionally and you show it, you basically say, I love you no matter what. This is the opposite of that. Also, praise for ability or talent rather than effort and strategies. If you work on a painting and you get the color just right, and you look at other art and you practice and you get feedback from other people and instruction on how to do it, and then you produce a beautiful painting, you show it to somebody else and they say, wow, you've got a lot of talent. I could never do that. They're basically communicating to you that they think that you were born with the ability to do this painting. So that's talent when people praise talent. Now, a lot of people take that and they think, wow, well, why even bother with all this effort? It's something that I was just born with. And it actually turns out to be not so motivating. Also, lower socioeconomic status, again, if I can get it out. Poorer people, poorer children especially, think they have a fixed mindset. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One is that they experience less success because they have less support, and this is especially true in countries where the schools aren't so great, and they believe that, well, that's because they blame themselves. That's because of me, because I'm dumb. Oddly enough, though, also being Western and being American encourages a fixed mindset, and I'll explain why in a couple minutes. So what causes a growth mindset? First of all, the opposite of contingent regard, unconditional regard and structure from parents. Structure is just setting out expectations and holding a child to those expectations, but also doing it in a way that supports their wishes, their autonomy, so that you come to an agreement and there's a sense of respect, and also a sense of support, helping somebody reach these expectations and making them clear. That's especially between a parent and a child, but honestly, this could apply to friends. If you have a friend, the best thing you can do for them is tell them when they mess up and say, I love you no matter what, but here's how you can do something right by me. And sometimes they don't want to do right by you, and that's another negotiation. But basically, a lot of people, if you have a fixed mindset, a lot of those are people that are wanting to avoid confrontations. A growth mindset is actually, it's all about like confronting what's wrong, what can we fix here. So a big cause of a growth mindset, again, is support for an SES, like basically socioeconomic status and experiences of success that come from having support. And oddly enough, being Eastern, being Chinese, has a big effect on a growth mindset. In China, they did an interesting study where people in China had just as much unhappiness as people in the United States, but their depression was lower. And they also have the same level of schizophrenia. So it's not that people aren't reporting depression because they think it's taboo. But in China, the depression was lower. A big reason, it turns out, is that they believe, although they're unhappy, they believe that they can do something about it. Americans don't have that belief, and we'll talk about why in a second. So what are the negative effects of a fixed mindset? Really quick. People believe they cannot change, but they also believe that other people cannot change. That's huge. if you believe that you can't change and you also think others can't change, you're going to treat them differently. You're going to be more punitive, it turns out, at least according to the research. You're going to be more likely to think that someone else should feel pain for making a mistake. You're also going to be more prejudiced. You are going to see, somebody drops a book, you actually think that they're clumsy. You are going to believe stereotypes, be more vulnerable to believing stereotypes, to believe that groups can't change and that they have a fixed thing that they were born with, and that you're going to in general believe, if you believe that what you get from your parents and you inherit it, you're going to believe that, well, if that's true, then these different groups must be completely different species. You're also going to have more depression. And one thing interesting in the research is that they find that people's emotions toward other people in prejudice are a lot like their emotions toward themselves in depression. And that prejudice is like depression turned outward on other people. And depression is prejudice turned inward. It's contempt for this bad person. Actually, there's a word for that in one of the papers. They called it deprejudice. All right. Why is the fixed mindset greater in the United States? In Western culture, going back to ancient Greece, there's been this belief in something called the aptitude myth, that we are born with our abilities. In capitalism, it's kind of encouraged that because a lot of times you have to make snap decisions based on whom to hire, and what their skills are at that moment. And that leads to people saying, well, that's what their abilities are. It doesn't lead necessarily to a lot of thinking that people can grow. That changes, hopefully that changes with a lot of support. But if you have freedom without support, people are going to think that, oh, it's my fault. Look at all these other people who are doing great and I can't do it. But the huge thing in the West, and especially in North America and in the Caribbean, is slavery. Slavery continued here way past the rest of the world, and it was based on an idea, it promoted the idea that there are different species within the human race called races, and that they are different and they inherit different qualities from their parents and their parents' parents, and that makes them really different, and that defines them. If you have a growth mindset, then you're not going to believe in race, because everybody can change, and what difference does it make who your parents were? So heritability is not going to be that big a deal to someone with a more growth mindset. For a fixed mindset, heritability is everything. And slavery was based on the idea of what you inherit, and it enforced that too. It also forced people to think that some people were bad. I mean, just because it was so evil, in order to justify it, you had to think, well, they must deserve that. So last thing is a little bit more complicated, but there's more personal freedom under capitalism and in the United States of America. And as a result, there's sometimes less structure. What happens, at least with a lot of parents, is that they wind up using emotions rather than setting limits with children, they use their emotions to set limits. This actually happens between friends. But basically, a lot of people, they don't want to have a confrontation. They just get mad, and then you have to figure out why they're mad. So parents do use contingent regard, routinely, and say like, I'm gonna give them a hug when they do well, and I'm gonna make sure they know I'm mad when they do bad. But that actually winds up encouraging a fixed mindset. So the last two are completely up to you. They're open questions. Number 14, describe someone you care about, someone you support even when they make a mistake. What would you tell them if they said, what's the use? I'm just stupid. Number 15, what do you think? Can people change? What can they change and why? Thank you so much for participating. Can't wait to see you next time, and keep up your hard work in your classes. You're doing great.